So that's out right now. All right. Just looking at Chapter 8 and just realized we actually have done all of Chapter 8. It's just how to do VLSM and about how you choose addressing. And we did that. And so we've actually gone through and done. I thought there were some other things in here, and they talked about design considerations, and I told y'all that to make sure you want to plan for more hosts and more subnets than you need. And then when you're doing the subnetting, that when you're doing the VLSM, remember you got to start with your largest network. Now, I did tell you one thing wrong the other day. I told you they had 62, 62, 62, 32, and I said those wouldn't work. They need to be 60s and 30s. Actually, 62 does work. I was wrong on that one. The 32 won't work. Okay? 32 needs to be changed to 30s. But 62 does work because you actually have 64 addresses, remember, on borrowing that many, on only borrowing the 1 bit. Actually 2 bits. No, yeah. Borrowing 2 bits gives you 64 addresses per subnet, 62 usable hosts. Because remember, all zeros and all 1 host are not usable, okay? Now all 0 subnet used to not be usable, but is now generally. So almost all the things you ever have to do, the 0 one does count. But the 32 was the number of total hosts, not usable hosts. And normally you're dealing with usable hosts because you don't want to count the all zeros and all ones. Does that make sense? Because all zeros is what? That's the network address, which was the first column, remember, in my chart. All ones, all binary ones is what? In the host portion. It's a broadcast address. Okay? If you're doing it purely on class boundaries, that gave you a subnet mask of 255. Now, the one thing I didn't do when we did it on the board the other day was when we did those first 3 subnets, I should have given you also what your subnet mask was for those 3 lines, which would have been the 255, 255, 255, because remember it was Class C address. Point, and it was 192 because we had borrowed 2 bits to do those 3. So it would have been a 192 for the 4th octet in the subnet mask. The last 2 subnets where we borrowed 1 more bit, remember to do the 2 subnets with 30 addresses, the subnet mask for them, those hosts, would be the 255, 255, 255.224. Okay? Because we had the first 3 bits were borrowed, which is the 128, 64, and 32, and 128 plus 64 plus 32 gives you 224. Okay, y'all follow on that? And I didn't put that out on y'all's chart on the board. I thought about that yesterday when I was teaching the other class, and when we went through on it, I went, whoops, didn't get subnet mask out here, and I should have given y'all for the variable length one, because remember, it is variable length one. On IP version 6, there is no restriction on all zeros and all ones. They're used. So they don't block out those. That it's got other specific things in terms of broadcast address, and there's a specific address that's just used on that. IP version 6 also on most devices on your PCs doesn't just assign one address, but assigns a local link address and one or two other addresses that deal with its address in the local subnet and its address in the bigger network. So I would have a couple of IP version 6 addresses that you'll find sitting on there, but there's the local one, the local link one, and that's the one you're really concerned about, because that's the one that's the addressing from machine to machine. But they do pick up some other IP version 6 addresses to the machines also a lot of times. But if you do the IP config in Windows, or what is the command in Unix? ipconfig is what command in Unix. It's ipconfig in Windows, but in Unix it's a different command. What is it? Anyone know? Or Linux, Unix, any of that. And I think actually Mac probably uses it also, because because the iOS for them is a Unix-based one. ifconfig. Okay? Probably really, in some ways, the IF is actually a better name on it, because that's interface is what it is, instead of Internet Protocol, because you're getting more information than just about the Internet Protocol on that command. When you do it, if you do it with /all, you're finding out everything about that and about your interfaces. So IF probably really is better, but Windows, when they did it, they changed it to IP because Windows took the approach of it was building everything off of IP type approach on stuff. Also, they needed to change the names of some stuff so that it wasn't the same, so that they wouldn't get in trouble for copying Linux, for copying Unix, not Linux, because Linux didn't exist back in 1980 when DOS came out. So it's actually coming from DOS. It's where the ipconfig comes from. So, so that's the approach on that. And then when you break it down into those subnets with the VLSM, remember, if you've got a router-to-router connection within your network, that you want to break that one on down to, it'll just have 2 usable addresses for that subnet, which means it uses the last 2 bits, sorry. So most you can borrow in a Class C address is 6 bits for subnetting, okay? You've got to leave the last 2, because you're going to have 4 hosts there, addresses, that's actually 2 usable, because remember, 2 of the 4 is not usable. But if you're doing router to router, that's all you can use on there, because if it's a router connecting to a router, nothing else can connect in that wire. So there's only 2 addresses used, and that's where VLSM can really come in powerful, is that then you can get the subnet set up, or like I showed you on the one I showed you on the board, with the 360s or 362s and the 230s. Won't work with regular subnetting, because if you just did the regular subnetting, you would have to set them all 5 to contain 60 addresses each. Well, there's only 254 addresses in a Class C address, so that's not possible. But if you do the VLSM like we did in here the other day, it works. And you can actually have some more stuff down in there, because we could have done, actually that one did use it all, but you could have done some more breaking around on it for some smaller things if you didn't have, had some smaller than the 30s. Okay, questions on the VLSM? All right, Blackboard theoretically should be down. They've sent a message out to, I know the faculty, I haven't been on email, so I didn't see who it went to. But I know it went out to the faculty administration this morning saying don't get on any of those type things because they're still testing and getting it worked out. I know, but if you did get to Blackboard and successfully got onto it, that you can still do stuff out there. It really had no impact on Blackboard. The impact was on the login. Does that make sense? Because we're doing single login, so you're really not logging into Blackboard. It's using the school's logon server to log into Blackboard. So, like yesterday, after the single logon went down, I still was using Blackboard all morning when I couldn't get onto anything using single logon any longer because I stayed logged in. I know students were on it last night because in one of my classes that had to collaborate last night, I know they got into it. I wasn't in it. I went to Gainesville yesterday to help a student over there, and I didn't get home till after 10:30 last night. If I'd come straight home from when she and I left Panera Bread, where we sat and went over her class stuff, it would have been just after 9:30, but I guess I didn't get something to eat while I was there in Panera Bread, because I really was looking for more to eat than just that. And so I started down the road and stopped at a place or two. Coming on back. Gainesville was a little further than I remembered it being, because I didn't remember it being 2.5 hours there, but it took 2.5 hours to get there and get back. But that was okay. So that I told students in the one class they're supposed to have collaborate last night. And I just remembered I got collaborate this afternoon because I delayed the one from yesterday to today. And I really thought I was going to go home early this afternoon and rest for the afternoon, or do at least something at the house instead. But I've got collaborate at 2 o'clock today. So much for that idea. Assuming that we can get on at 2 o'clock today, because I don't know how long this is going to take, because they had not sent, I was talking with Mr. Spurlock and I hadn't gotten on my machine. So when I walked in, he told me, they've sent out the notice this morning and told us don't touch this stuff until they tell us more. So, all right, questions on all of that? 7 was due Monday. Hopefully y'all all got tests done. Y'all's test scores have been all moved except for 7 from Cisco to Blackboard. So Blackboard actually for you at this point is showing fairly accurate on grades. Now remember the point total one. And I haven't looked at what the numbers were showing in there. And since we can't get on Blackboard, we can't look right at the moment anyway. Remember your 2 finals are each 10% of your final grade, so probably that grade's only, if you had made hundreds on all of your assignments and tests, you're probably only looking at a score in the point column that's in the 40s, okay? If you made all hundreds. If you're passing, if you're in the 30s to 40s, you should be in good shape. Does that make sense? If you're down in the 9s or 10s at this point in there, you're not doing good. So I have transferred in those classes, the Cisco classes, all of the test grades from Cisco to Netiquette except for this week's, okay? Because that was due Monday, and I'm not doing grade transfers until after it's due, because if I had transferred when I was doing transfers this weekend, test grades, and included 7 in it, then it makes it more complicated when I go back to transfer again. I'm having to manually transfer, and I'd still have to look at each one of you on the grade, even though I'd transferred part of you over. I'd still have to look and make sure I'd transfer the right things and stuff, so it's easier if I just do it all at one time. So that's the reason for waiting on that, that I don't sit there and go, wait a minute, I already transferred that one, but I had looked and knew you made 93 on this test and went to go over, and oh, it's already moved. And then went to do the next one. Well, that took just as much time as when I was doing it. Yeah, I didn't sit there and type 2 keystrokes, but more of the time's involved in the look and move to the other position. So I try not to do that. So hopefully I can stay further well caught up on them in the 2601 class, which is it just you in that one? Both of y'all are in that one. I've got part way through on the grades transferred across, but I didn't get all the way through them. I think I only went through like chapter 6 or so. Does that sound right? Is it letting you in right now?
Yes, I can see him.
So I didn't get all of the test grades transferred, I don't think. I think I only transferred part way.
Yeah, you got the 6.
6, okay. So I got to do the rest. Assignments in Cisco class are all graded except for what was due Monday. Okay? In that class, I'm grading on chapter 6, I believe it is. Because I think I finished through 5 and I started doing on 6. And so I graded some people and really pretty much just went through, looked at them all, and realized people hadn't, I think that was 6 or 7. That is where I'm on. It was the one where y'all had to do packet tracer and a lab. And some people didn't turn in the packet tracer to me. And so I sent them notes telling them, y'all had to turn in that packet tracer file. So I'm going to go back and start grading on that again real soon and grade on the other stuff on y'all. So hopefully I can get more, stay caught up. I think the calendar is all done for y'all's class now. I know I did it the first 2 classes, the 1220 and the 2413, and I think I've got it fully set up in here too. I think the only one I don't have the calendar all the way, all y'all's assignments out there for the rest of the semester. No, I don't have it done in here yet. I'm partway through on that one. So I'm through the next 2 weeks, and I just got to get those last so many weeks done. So I'll try to get that finished out, but I do have several classes now that I actually do have the whole semester set up in. The 2601, I know I'm not any further than now, because every time when I go to do the next one on that, I have to go out and look at everything and create completely. In y'all's class in here, I just got to verify it's the right lab number, because some reason it carried in some stuff from the last time I taught this a year ago, which was using the book y'all are using, and on some chapters it pulled in stuff from before then, which used a previous version of the book, and they changed chapters around and added some more material in your book. That chapter you had that taught you how to use the routers and switches was not in the previous book. So I am making progress. That I made a huge amount of progress in the last 2 weeks. In the last, about 2 weeks. So that's a whole lot closer. But now I need to work on some other stuff too, and like the class I've been taking on A+. Last session was Monday night, which none of them I ever saw live, I don't think. I may have seen one partly live. But the 12 sessions of it, that was the 12th session. I've got to watch that one this week. And then starting last night, and I didn't see it because I was on the road, because it runs from 8 to 10 o'clock. And if I hadn't been on the road, I would have been collaborating from 8 to 9 o'clock. So still couldn't have watched it. that my Linux train the trainer class started last night, and the next session is Thursday night. I may get to watch that one live. I don't know. Depending. I'm not sure what I'm doing Thursday night in Atlanta. Well, I'm down there for Skills USA because I'll get there Thursday afternoon, but depends on when I go to eat and who I go to eat with. So I've got to watch those too. And then there's a couple other things I'm taking that aren't school related that I need to get to watching too. Because I'm enrolled in a Bible study thing that if I can get a number of their courses done, I get a certificate. We know who didn't put on vibrate. That means you have to get up and dance in front of the class. Is that going to send everybody home immediately?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll skip that one. Any questions for me then? Next week, we'll go back and look on some of this again. And transport layer, actually, we'll go ahead and start into that one probably on one of the 2 days next week, the next chapter. Because actually doing some stuff with TCP, learning the handshake and stuff is a little bit more on that one. And I think we've only got one week on chapter 9. Okay? But I may be wrong. It may be chapter 9 we got 2 weeks on, and 1 week on 10, and 2 weeks on 11. Actually, the last one will have the number of sessions on it, but it is shorter because that last week y'all's test actually is assigned on Monday and due on Friday. Y'all follow on that? The other part is, okay, y'all are Monday, Wednesday. There's a possibility I should be here Monday, Wednesday. Yeah. No. I may not be here that Wednesday. Correction. There's a seminar in Indianapolis that I would love to go hear up there, that Hillsdale College, which is in Michigan. And yes, Indianapolis is in Indiana. But they're doing a national leadership seminar that they've invited me to, and they've got some real good political science people, some speakers on a lot of different things. They got some real good professors on some different things. I'm taking some online courses with them free. Y'all can take them also out there. They got some neat Constitution courses, and they got a bunch of other courses too. And they actually give you this nice cardboard certificate when you finish the courses. If you make at least an 80 on the final in the class, you can take the final as many times as you need to take it. There's no honor on it or anything type thing that you have to, that you're saying you didn't look at stuff or whatever, but pretty good setup. And I was political science major in college, if y'all remember from the first day of class. And when I've taken several of their Constitution courses, it's been interesting learning more stuff about that stuff that I didn't learn when I was in college, and getting more stuff. Now, they are coming from a conservative viewpoint. So you just have to count that in there, and I'd love to find another school that came from a liberal viewpoint, teaching the same material to get a wider look at the whole thing. But they throw in, so they're doing their interpretation sometimes of some stuff. Might not always agree with everybody, but I think sometimes they don't even agree with themselves on what they put out there. That they try to give a pretty balanced look on it, although they definitely do, and they tell you that they're coming from a little bit different on it. And so I really like theirs, and it's always interesting to find on it. And then they've offered that they've got like 3 sessions that day in Indianapolis, 3 or 4. Their president, and I think it's 4. Their president speaks on one thing, and he's real good on speaking about a number of things. They've had a couple of literature classes were good out there too, and some other stuff. They got 22 online courses out there now, and they're professionally done. It's not just an instructor. It's not just like filming me standing right up here. They've actually got it in their nice office spot with these nice old bookcases behind them. And the only odd part is they use a chalkboard in there, literally a chalkboard with them. Not a marker board, chalk. There's an attendance sheet somewhere here. Yeah, supposed to be on they're on it, but I've been told not to get on it, so I'm not getting on it. Y'all didn't get the email saying don't be on it, so there's a difference right there, okay? If you can get into it, it's fine. Stuff's going to be all there, stay there, whatever you do. But and depending on how they're looking at the stuff, it may or may not work for y'all versus for me. So, all right. So I've been doing those, and I want to get back into those, but I haven't had time recently to get into them. I actually used to a couple of years ago here at school. I was having time. I was sitting here every week. I'd watch at least one of their 45-minute lectures. Well, I say they do it. They film professionally with the person at the lectern and everything, and some of them they've actually done them in front of groups of students. But doing it through a professional filming on it versus where you've watched, if any of you have watched my videos out there, I've just put the camera sitting in the middle of the class pointing up at the front and filming me right there, and didn't have somebody actually filming of me. And y'all can see the difference on that. It's like when I do my church service, that we got the camera sitting up there, and we do adjust the camera to the locations of where things move around up there, but we don't have a person just running the camera up there. That's me running the video and the other guy running the sound, or sometimes me running video and sound and trying to do the camera in the midst of it too. So sometimes it doesn't. We don't always switch it around like it ought to be. So it's not professionally done. And y'all can see the difference sometimes on those things. There's also a mounted camera there at the church that we're using, so a little bit more limited on that too. But it works pretty well, and when they're not paid, it's all volunteers. There's a certain level of, you don't expect quite as good stuff. I would love to do recording more of the stuff, but my other problem is I really want people sitting there for me talking to. I have a hard time talking to myself. Does that make sense? Of course, they say you shouldn't go around talking to yourself anyway, right?
Well, it's not the problem until you start answering.
Huh?
It's not a problem until you start answering yourself.
Okay. Of course, now we never do know when people are talking to themselves and answering themselves anymore anyway, because they may well be talking on the phone right there. Because when you're walking through the store or you're in the restroom, that's the one that always amazes me. You're there in the restroom and you hear somebody having a conversation and going, wait a minute, and realize they're not speaking to you, and it's only you and one other person in that restroom.
That's when you just hope they're on the phone.
Huh?
That's when you just hope they're on the phone.
Uh-huh.
Either that or you find a different bathroom. You should quit.
So we never know at all anymore on it. But it's easier for me because the other part is I actually watch y'all when I'm up here talking, whether you realize it or not. And so as I'm telling y'all about some stuff that I'm seeing y'all's reactions to, and that tells me, do I need to talk more about that or do I need to talk less about it? And then sometimes I'm really not sure because you're sitting there and staring at your computer or got your phone out and staring at it while I'm talking. And sometimes some of the people are actually listening fully to me through that. And some of you are taking notes sometimes, I realize, also on phone or on the computer. That's the other thing on saying, don't use the phone or the computer here in class is there are some people legitimately doing something, listening to the instructor at the same time. Some of you that get, and myself fits into this one sometimes, of that we look like we're not listening very well, but we've heard everything. And that if we sort of, as we're zoning in on the person, that it looks like we've dozed off or whatever, and that I could ask you afterwards what I said, and you may be able to recite to me word for word what I said, and that I thought you were sleeping through class. So we never do know. And then the other part is, I may say something, or somebody else may have said something in class that all of a sudden set you off thinking on something else that you need to be doing, and that you're suddenly coming up with a solution of that in your mind in here. I know that. But there's still listening and picking up stuff from class. All right, any questions? So like I say, we've done 8 actually already.
Waiting
Well,
on the test and stuff to open up. Waiting on the test and stuff to open up.
Wait a minute, I didn't catch what you said.
Waiting on the test to open up.
To open up?
Yeah.
It's not open?
No?
Which one? 8?
Check, yeah.
Okay, 8, I don't have it open yet because it really is not scheduled to open. 8 should be open. Is it
I clicked on it, it says not available.
in NetAcad?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the date it's got on it?
It's not showing it.
Actually, it should be.
It says assessment not activated.
Okay. Click back on the side. You see something? No. Oh, it doesn't show you did lines down there, does it? On mine, it shows me dates due on there.
Once it's activated, it'll show.
But,
It'll show me when I'm in,
because those are all undated assignments, that's weird.
it'll show me like to do. It'll show me the exam 8 right here with the due date on it.
due for the week.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it won't.
I thought I put due dates and I thought I activated all of
Well,
those.
once it's activated, it'll tell me. But it's not activated.
I thought I had.
Oh, no.
Okay. Let me pull it up real quick. Well, I can get on that because that's not using single logon, as you all know. So I can definitely go to here.
See, I didn't even look at your screen.
Because I thought I had activated those. But there was something, seemed like it had disappeared on me on that 1 or 2 places from the other day. Guess what? I can't do that either. I can't get onto the computer. It just told me my account is locked out.
And so you opened up all the ones for my online class. Maybe that's the one.
The 2601 they're open? Or
Yeah.
no, which class are you in?
2601.
You're in 2601?
Yeah.
So we
Everything's
got-
open for that one, like all the due dates.
I got due dates down on 2601 all the way down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just not
But I
on
don't
this
have it
class.
done in Blackboard yet in there. I went ahead and did put them there, but I thought I had put in 2451 also. I
Mine's
thought,
the
I
same
knew
as
I was sure I'd put for this week because I've at least been doing for each week. Yeah, the Watt Dwight. The referenced account is currently locked out and may not be logged onto. So apparently the teacher domain, subnet, they've locked out all, they blocked us going to the single logon, but apparently they haven't blocked from the student one. Go figure. So I can't go in and look at that, so I'll have to look at that this afternoon. And yeah, I want to get those finished on out, setting everything out there. And then y'all's grade will actually be accurate in here and in the other in-person class. The online one, y'all's point total one, actually in the 2601, I don't have all the assignments out there yet, so that one's still gonna bounce around. But if I do get all the assignments out there and there, it's still gonna bounce a little bit because I don't have all the weekly discussions already projected out there. Although, I'm gonna try to do that one too. Don't know what the discussions will be on yet, but I'll do one. Go ahead and set the shell for them up there for me to put in what the discussion is. And I've got to go in on, y'all are on 11 this week, I think, in that class, aren't you? I think it's 11 in 2601.
Yeah. 11.
And somebody wrote me last night and said they were confused or something about the assignment in there.
Is it due not this week, but next week? It says April 8th on it.
Yeah, it is due on April the 8th, because actually you've got 2 weeks on the remaining things in that class. 11, 12, and 13, we've got 2 weeks on each of the chapters in that class. And actually for 11, it's 2 school weeks plus you've got a break week in there. So you actually got 3 weeks on 11 and 2601. 9 in here, y'all actually have 2 weeks on it, because you'll have next week plus you'll have spring break that next week. So
Because the calendar for this class says chapter 8 isn't due till
8 should not be due till the 8th.
of April?
Mhm.
For chapter 8?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because the 1st through the 5th is spring break.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to make it due on the 1st. Okay? And 8 I had for 2 weeks. Because a lot of students, a lot of times when I've taught this class, people have real problems trying to get the subnetting and the VLSM learned. It seems to have clicked pretty well with y'all, and actually, as I went through it, it went smoother for me than before. And like where I talked about the magic number, magic bit, I've never done that before. And that really made it make more sense to me at that point. And it makes more sense to me, it's bound to make more sense to y'all. Okay? That hadn't really clicked on me. The number I had been using, but when I'd seen the magic bit mentioned, I go, what? And then I figured out what they were saying. And I went, okay, this really works dual-wise. So I had 8 for 2 weeks because that is a little bit harder for students usually. And that way y'all get more time on it. I'm still working on the answer manual for that 32-page exercise thing that you can do. It's not a requirement, but where you can do stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to get it in there where I can get it where it's in ADA style. So that's in a pile of papers I've been carrying around with me every day. But I did not make anything due during the week we're out. Although I was told last night in 1220, and I got to look and see, because the one I went to help over there in Gainesville said that I had actually set their assignment due during spring break. And at the point when we realized that, she and I had been in Blackboard doing stuff and on the machine, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, Panera Bread lost internet connection. We could connect to their wireless router, but they had no internet any longer at that point after a couple of hours. So I don't know what happened on that. We were going to meet at the county library over there, got there, and I had been on their website to find the address where the library was. They didn't mention anything on their website about their closed this week because they're moving to a new building or even where the new building was. And we got there and the thing was closed. She'd gotten there a few minutes ahead of me, and she met me in the parking lot and said, "They're closed." She said, I went in and asked, and she said, "It didn't look right." And I said something, and they said they were closed, that they were moving to this new location. I said, "Well, the website doesn't say anything about it." She said, "Well, that's what she told them too." And they said, "Well, they thought it was on the website." You'd think you would post that on the website that you were closed this week and where your new location was going to be when you were moving from one place to another place.
I've been there for years.
Hmm?
It works right there with, I don't know why they're
But the downtown location over there in Gainesville, they're moving. I assume where they're going to move it to, they'll probably have some bigger parking lot and stuff to it also there, and because there's not a whole lot of parking was right there. But of course, when I pulled up to it, I went, "Oh, that's the library," because actually
The one that's down there in Gainesville.
because I went, "That's the library," because actually the style of that building, how they just way it looks from the outside, was shaped just like the college library was. The library was at the college I went to back when I was in college, and I went, "It's the same building style as one I had been in," and then it was closed. So then she said, "We can go to Panera Bread or somewhere else just down the road." And I said, "Well, Panera will work fine," because she said they've got good Wi-Fi, and so we went down there, and they had no problem with us sitting there and working. So I said them or McDonald's would do, because McDonald's usually is good on, although I've noticed this McDonald's now does have the sign up in it that says they don't want you sitting there more than 30 minutes in there.
They won't kick you out. They know it before, so they won't kick you out.
But I'm not sure how long that's been there, but I've actually met students over there at this one before on the Thanksgiving holiday, because when we were closed here and there was a student I was helping for a few weeks, not this last fall, but previous fall, and I'd come over and meet her and her mom over here in the evening to help her through a class she was in. And we were going to meet that week and found out this was closing up every day that week at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we weren't meeting until 5 when her mom got home, because she had to ride with her mom was her ride. And I said, "Okay, let's just go over to McDonald's," and we sat there and met for an hour or two while I went through and worked with her on stuff. And I've met at other McDonald's too, that when a student somewhere in another town wants to meet me for help. Because y'all know how some things you can get onto doing that no matter how much you get in touch with me or whoever your instructor is, you really can't ever define what the problem is sometimes. A lot of times you can do it by email, but sometimes email, even talking on the phone, that there's some little glitch in it that you can't figure out what's going on there, and that the person really needs to just look at it. And so that's where I'll go travel and meet people if it's within reason. Or sometimes that where they are, I'm going to be going that direction, and I'll go, "Okay, where's a McDonald's on the interstate close to you and that we can meet at?" And so I will meet students on it. All right, if there's not any other questions, we've run an hour. I'm going to let y'all go. But then next week, if we need to go back and review on the VLSM, we can, or even subnetting, we can. My thing that's from the guy that wrote the 4th Cisco book, his PowerPoint where he taught me about IP version 6. I'm mixing letters up in my head, sorry. And y'all understand on that now, because y'all have had enough letters come from me of acronyms for everything. That I do have it compliant now, and I don't think I've activated it, but I will activate it and I'll put it in the course documents for you. And that y'all can go through it. Realize if you go through it, don't try to get everything out of every slide. Just jump slide to slide and see how it's telling about different things and see what things you pick up from it. Okay? Now there may be one or two of you that wants to look at every slide and picks up things right off of it. It would help if I had a voiceover to go with it too, but that's a whole nother issue to do. I'd love to do that too, but when I'd get a chance to record that, it's like 250 PowerPoints long, I will warn you that. So, but use it as a resource. It really helped make some sense to me when he used that and talked about it back in 2012. So it is a little bit older, but IP version 6 is exactly the same as it was in 2012 and exactly the same as it was actually in 2001. Okay? So, I like it, and I'd really like to do more. All right, you want my signature, I think. And you filled it out for me. Good. And y'all can go, or y'all can stay.
That's June for my ride. I got a ride today.
You were having to get there at 10.